Would Hazur advise us how we should answer in short when those people not believing in the existence of Allah Ta'ala who say we have everything we need, for example health, wealth, televisions, houses, cars and other things. Why should we believe in Allah Ta'ala and pray to Him?
How can you answer them in short when you can't even ask in short? A person who cannot ask a question in short, I can't conceive him to give a short answer to anybody. So you are putting me in a great difficulty.
Because my request was after 2 questions, so I thought that the time may be sufficient.
No, I'm not objecting. What I'm saying is that your question is impossible for me to answer. You want me to tell you a shortcut to give a short answer to a very big and important question, while you generally make very long queries. Your questions are longish. How can you make a short answer? This I can't know. I mean, I don't know any method, any magic by which I can make you give a short answer, and that too very satisfactory.
Hazur, I knew this subject is very vast, but I wanted to, Hazur can make a brief out of that.
I can't turn this vast subject into, can't force it into a small space. It's impossible. The fact is, I understand your point, but I'm not just whiling away the time. I mean it by what I say. The fact is that the question of the evidence of the existence of God is a very vast subject, applies to a very vast subject, and the people who are agnostics or atheists, they belong to different categories. And not only the categories differ, but individuals belonging to a certain category also differ. So not knowing whom I'm addressing, I can't give you a short answer which would be applicable to any questioner. Some people have a scientific mind and you can approach them scientifically. Some people have inherited a sort of philosophy and they only want an answer in terms of that philosophy. For instance, the philosophy of scientific socialism. Their arguments against the existence of God revolve around a certain fundamental point, and they are very sensitive to this issue because if they begin to believe in God, their whole philosophy goes overboard. So they always object to the existence of God with a certain philosophy in mind. Similarly, there are agnostics of so many types who say we don't know. And to give them a short, brief argument and suddenly they begin to know, this is not possible. You have first to go a few steps along with them. You hear them on the subject and tell them to explain what their views are. What objection do they have, or do they have any objection, or just it is lack of knowledge. All these things have to be discussed with a person before you find out the right way of answering such a person or satisfying such a person. So it is not possible, in fact, to give a short answer. Hazrat Muslim Maud, for instance, I remember, whenever was approached by an atheist or agnostic, he would go along with him a few steps and discuss things of what was his view and what he thought and what sort of evidence would he require. For instance, once a Sikh came to him who was an agnostic and who had a very long discussion with him in Masjid Mubarak, And Hazrat, he said, I want the proof of the existence of God in a manner that he should punish me and show me his wrath. So Hazrat Muslim Maud took a very long time trying to convince him that he can be also seen in a better way. Why don't you demand his mercy and his beneficence and a sign of his nearness so that I pray and you see the sign? So Sardarji insisted, no. I want some punishment. So it all depends. A sign of benevolence, a sign of mercy and kindness was meaningless to him. So if I say, I start talking of such a sign and the person whom you are addressing or whom you want to address is built after that Sardarji, how will this work on him? And if I give you a sign of a different nature like for Dekram and this and that, and the person you are addressing is brought up in a different social setup and he is horrified with such a God, with the concept of such a God. He wants some benign manifestation, so that argument would become meaningless to him. And there are some who are just logical people, who want a logical argument. So to them, both these arguments would be meaningless. So I can count on and on such varieties of people who should be treated individually. I mean, I can't write a book here at this moment. You see, so you are also an individual. You have a special mind and a special thing in your mind. So give this allowance to everybody else as well. Although I was addressing you, I tried to satisfy you, yet it seems that I was all around you but not at you. And something I missed, despite the fact that I already know you so much. So how can my answer satisfy someone whom I do not know at all? Now you come and explain yourself, please.
No, when I start thinking of this question, I knew this is a very vast subject and would not fit in this small time. But what I wanted was everyday life. We come across, and suppose we stop in the street and meet some friends or old friends and all this, and we talk to them. Oh, they know we are religious, and we start talking to them, and
they don't believe in God.
No, some of them may not. And in a big way they say, oh, we have got everything.
It's like if you want to drop an argument, we should clinch the whole issue.
We know them and we can pursue them after argument, we can continue them after that. But I want you to know when they say, oh, we have got everything, they are all green, why you bother us to believe in God and pray to Him?
So that means
sort of answer we can give.
No, don't answer. Rectify your approach. That means your approach is totally wrong. You are trying to enter a building not through the door, but through a thick wall. Find the door. Everybody is built differently. He has his own plan of things, and he is provided with some doors and windows and places of entrance and also walls to protect the house. So whenever you don't know the plan of a house, you make such mistakes. You try to enter through force. You can't bulldoze into people. La ikraha fi din, that also is one of the meaning. You have to find out how best they can be approached and entered into. And that can't be done in a hurried meeting on the way. If you are approached like this by some Sikh or some Jain or some Buddhist, that would be your answer. Please go ahead. I'm quite satisfied. Go ahead. Take your
correct. We do that in our lives, and when we are sitting, in an office or somewhere, we first start with this one that if I want to tell you something, there's like we always tell them. Either you accept my arguments or not. You are always open to that. then they start talking to them, and in a mood, sometimes they talk, we don't need
That is the right time for you to change your approach. This is what I'm trying to
No,
do.
we are changing different approaches.
That's the best answer.
We are doing that. But
You know, the fact is,
from Hazur to little more
This is what I'm telling you.
how we can have the right approach.
please, I'm telling you this. You know, this approach, whenever somebody gets disinterested, it is not a time to shake him up. It is a time to wake yourself up and to make yourself realize that now I must find a different way, different path. It is like a speaker once said during his speech that if one of the audience dozes off, wake me up. You know, you understand the message? So I should be woken. The fact is that only people go to sleep, except for some tired people who are excessively tired. It is, in generalizations, one can say when a speaker is off the track, he is not paying full concentration to his subject, he is not awake fully to the importance of his subject, only then the audience go to sleep. So instead of saying wake him up, this speaker said, if one of the audience goes to sleep, wake me up. Remind me that you're off the track. So that is the time when somebody loses interest in your talk. That's the time to wake yourself up and to realize that I must change my subject. Unless you become interesting to someone, nobody is going to listen to you. Make yourself interesting. Even if you have to do something odd. You know, sometimes in Qadian I remember a gentleman by the name of Mr. Abdul Rahman. He wore a different dress from the rest of the people. He wore a chola on which the decision of Chawla, what was the judge in the name? Khosla. Was written, inscribed all over. And he went about with that chola. Everyone became interested in him and asked questions. And then he started answering because he was interesting to others. So sometimes people have to do that. But it is not only through an odd dress that you become interesting. Sometimes that interest which you create is not at all a productive interest. Sometimes people take you too lightly and have a word of laughter and then go their way. So I just indicate that sometimes people have to do that as well. Like during this visit to this Alhambra in 1982, one of the Ahmadi visitors from Rabwa dressed himself in a manner that he became a source of interest for everybody. People crowded around him and asked him about what he was and where he came from, and then he started preaching to them in a manner he knew. To become interesting, then people would be interested. And to become interesting, you must know the points of others' interest. What are the subjects in which they are interested? Without knowing that, you can't be interesting. So learn this from conversation by knowing them more, by feeling them as if you find out what are their points of interest. And then talk of those points of interest and somehow steer them into religious topics and relate them to religious topics. And drop a hint or two about what Islam has to say on those points of interest. So they will be caught up. I think that without this, you can't become a good preacher. But I can't tell you to which particular person what approach you should take. I can only give you a generalized approach about yourself. That should be applicable in every situation. But the answer would differ. from place to place, from a cage to cage. No, I'm clear? So somebody should say Adhan. It's only one question you were able to ask, unfortunately, because his one question was very long. He tricked you out. Next time you give him time for one question at the end, right? And take up the floor first.
No, I already asked him that. He asked me, in fact, about some questions. I wanted to avoid it, because I said if you, the other day, I answered him yes, and he said, he has got one. So today I wanted to avoid, but still he took out from me.
He is very clever. Although he appears to be a simple man, but within he is very clever.